deceit, cover-ups, and a hugely botched investigation. These three things are the trademarks of the sorrowful case of Amanda Wienckowski. Amanda was discovered upside down, naked, and frozen in a garbage can. But police say she ended up here by accident. Amanda's life is tragic from start to finish, but her finish, it was especially disturbing. But what might have happened to Amanda? And how might have she ended up in a garbage bin in the middle of a New York winter? Welcome to The Crime. If you're new here, I'm your host, Mira, and I post new true crime documentaries every day at 6 a.m., hosted by a woman. So, if that's your kind of thing, be sure to subscribe. It's totally free and just lets you know when I post new videos. Amanda Wienckowski, also known as Manda, was born and raised in Buffalo, New York. Amanda went to Niagara Wheatfield High School in 2006, and according to her mom, Lizzie, she was also crowned Miss Teen Buffalo at one point. During high school, Amanda also participated in dancing, swimming, and acrobatics. You name it. She had all of her eggs in different baskets, and things were going pretty good. Amanda had dreams of becoming a police officer. She wanted to change the world. She was bright, beautiful, and a strong young lady. So at around that same time, Amanda also received her diploma from the Board of Cooperative Educational Services, or BOCES, to become a police officer. She was one step closer to fulfilling her dream. But unfortunately, that is where all of her plans came to a halt. You know what they say, you are the company you keep. Well, her mom says Amanda met some unsavory people at the time that she was trying to earn her BOCES diploma. And unfortunately, that is when she fell into the black abyss of addiction. It was as if Amanda was pulled into this enormous black hole and couldn't escape. Once she had explained to her mom that it was like the devil was pursuing her, which is heartbreaking to hear, but a good metaphor. It's like fleeing from someone you can't see. And with each stride, you believe you're getting away, but you can feel them breathing down your neck heavier and heavier. To watch Amanda go from being a bright, ambitious 18-year-old girl with incredible dreams to now getting caught up in the trap of substance abuse, it's heartbreaking. But Amanda was a fighter. She did her best to release her addiction, and Leslie even took Amanda to see a clinic to get clean. Money was tight, but Leslie was there for her daughter every step of the way. But the ride was bumpy, as it usually is. Amanda didn't want to be an addict. She attempted so many different times to get rid of the habit, but things just weren't going on. There came a time when Amanda had to turn to adult work in order to pay for her addiction. She would have physical relations with individuals, and they would pay her in drugs. And it was a very cruel cycle. Amanda knew she couldn't continue doing this, but she also felt like her body would be inside out if she didn't continue to feed the demon. Amanda was involved with all kinds of underworld types. So she did have a manager at the time too, and his name was Adam Patterson. And by some accounts, if you stack the two of them side by side, Adam's old enough to be Amanda's father. But he wasn't. He was Amanda's manager. Oh, and Amanda also resided with said manager on the Tuscarora Reservation in Luan. In essence, Adam knew all the individuals who were able to assist Amanda. They possessed what Amanda desired and vice versa. Thus, Amanda would arrange meetings among the two, and he would transport her to these individuals' residences where the transactions would take place. You can read between the lines. Thus, this was Amanda's existence prior to her premature death. And this is precisely what she was doing on the very day that she disappeared. When she disappeared, besides seeking to win this tug-of war between addiction and adult work, Amanda was employed at a bar named Cocktail Bob's, and she was a student at Niagara County Community College, pursuing criminal justice classes. On December 5, 2008, the day of her disappearance, Amanda was on duty at the bar when she received a call from her roommate and boss, Adam. He had just finished the phone with this guy named Justice, who was Amanda's next client. I don't know if Amanda realized at the time, but this Justice guy was bad news. He was a very violent individual, and he was known to be intimidating giant. He was only 22 at the time, and he was as big and burly as a tank. And to make matters worse, he had a questionable criminal record. Plus, his name wasn't really Justice. His name was really Antoine Garner. And by the deal with Adam, Amanda needed to go to Antoine's place for the exchange, which was situated on Buffalo East Side. So Amanda arranged for a friend of hers at work to cover her shift. And she crawled into Adam's vehicle, and the two of them drove off. As they arrived at Antoine's house, Amanda jumped out. And be Adam, he waited outside in the car. Now, I want to make it plain that from here on in, this is Adam's account, so take it as you will. But he said that after waiting for about an hour, Amanda still hadn't emerged, but he received a call from her. Apparently, Amanda informed him that she was going to take a while and that he shouldn't wait for her. So Adam did precisely that. He got into his car, drove away from Antoine's house, and believed that Amanda would return home on her own. But that never occurred. Amanda would not return home, and she would not answer her mom's calls either. You see, Amanda and Leslie often spoke on the phone, and when Leslie called Amanda the following day and did not receive an answer from her, she was naturally very concerned. This was out of character for Amanda. Even if Amanda were somewhere out getting drunk, she would call her mother back. But it had been nearly 2 days, and Leslie was finished giving Amanda any additional time to get in touch. Not thinking twice, she called the police on December 7th and reported her 20-year-old daughter missing. It had been 2 days since Amanda had not returned home or been answering her phone, and the police needed to speak with who they believed was the last individual who saw Amanda, Adam Patterson. When Adam was questioned by the police later on, he informed them the same thing I'm informing you. He drove Amanda to Antoine's place for the exchange, and Amanda informed Adam herself she'd be late, and thus had drove away. Upon being questioned by the police as to what Adam did after driving away from Antoine's residence, he informed the police that he headed home about 8:30 p.m., and then he did not know where Amanda was. So, the police had to go back a little bit because Adam was not the last person to have seen Amanda alive. It was none other than Antoine Garner. So the police knew where to turn for answers, and they found themselves standing in front of Antoine's residence, which was in a very shady part of town. When Antoine was interrogated, he had something completely different to say to the police. Antoine asserted that Adam and Amanda did visit his home, but that Amanda did not remain longer than 10 to 15 minutes, and that she was immediately out the door with Adam. Asked if Amanda and Antoine had engaged in physical relations, Antoine denied having anything of that nature with Amanda. Amanda was at the house. They spoke for a short while. He gave her the drugs she sought and then left without Antoine receiving something in return. Now, I may not know so much, but Antoine doesn't strike me as a guy who would give out favors to strangers like this without expecting something in return. This is a pretty strange line of work, but one thing is certain: you give and you take. There is no charity. So was Antoine in such a generous mood that day that he simply decided to give Amanda whatever she wanted without taking anything? I don't think so. Well, the police were left confused too. They spoke with the 2 men who might or might not have been the last 2 to see Amanda. Neither of them was the most trustworthy, and now their accounts were not agreeing. This continued for a while, and meanwhile, Amanda was being searched for. Primarily, Amanda's friends and mom, Lisi, were searching for Amanda and everywhere that they knew that she went, but there was no trace of her. Amanda was nowhere to be seen. Hours converted into days. Days turned into weeks, and then over a month went by and nobody had any idea where Amanda might be. Her mom weighs in the edge, and she was trying her very best not to go crazy. The first few hours and days are the most important when it comes to missing persons cases, but to believe that it had been 4 weeks, and there was no sign of Amanda. It was quite terrifying, and Amanda's mom and friends had a very worse feeling about this creepy silence. Amanda was attempting to get her life back on track. But now she left everyone, and nobody had a clue where she was, if she was even alive or not. Well, that question would be answered soon, and it began with a 911 call. And we don't know who the caller was. They said that it was an anonymous caller, and they said that the police could look for something in a trash can in Buffalo's east side. Police and emergency services were sent right away. And when they arrived at the location, it was strangely familiar. It was primarily a church parking lot, but surprisingly, it was in the same location where Antoine Garner resided, the same location where Amanda was allegedly last seen and set off for the deal. The police went up to the garbage bin in question, and once they opened it, they were shocked. Now, I don't know if I said this already, but this was January of 2009, so it was the dead of winter in New York. So, it was cold outside. Not cold, but miserably so. Well, when police opened the bin, they found something. A frozen body. They didn't know whether it was a man or a woman. And that's because all of the hair on the head of the victim was removed. The head had been shaved. The body was also dumped face down in the bin, and there appeared to be marks on the face and neck. The only identifying factor was a butterfly tattoo on the neck, and that's what halted the police short. Amanda also had a butterfly tattoo on her neck. The police had no choice but to call a member of Amanda's family to officially recognize the body, and it was Amanda's own brother who actually ended up identifying his sister. It must have been excruciating for this guy. It had to have been. He had to call his mom in hysterics, and he was just in disbelief and just seconds away from losing his mind. It had been more than a month with no solutions, and now reality was coming down. Amanda was lost forever. The world of Amanda's family will never be the same. But they did not know that there was still more sorrow in store for them. The police were very suspicious of the position of the trash can. It had been dumped by Antoine's house, so the investigators believed that it was a slam dunk case. But when they questioned Antoine once more, he lied to them. He even went so far as to state that if he were to kill Amanda, he wouldn't be so dumb as to get rid of her body just outside his house. But in any case, Amanda's body was removed for an autopsy because they wanted to identify the cause of death. But this very autopsy would end up being a major point of controversy in Amanda's case. And to this date, not one and not two, but 3 autopsies have been conducted to determine how Amanda died. The initial autopsy was conducted immediately after Amanda's corpse was discovered, and it was determined that Amanda's reason for death was, wait for it, accidental overdose. Ironically, and most surprisingly, there was 0 reference to any of the markings on Amanda's body, which were clearly bruises and cuts. The initial autopsy determined that Amanda's death was simply an accident. What the medical officers hinted at was that Amanda, being in her history of addiction, was high on the night she went missing and then somehow cut her own hair off, disposed of her clothing, and then face-planted into a trash can. Believable? Maybe in some other galaxy, but not here. I mean, you don't have Toby, a medical examiner with forensic skills, to recognize that Amanda was a victim of a vicious assault. Her cause of death could be anything but an accident. And unfortunately, if the autopsy indicated that Amanda's death was an accident, then there was no basis to investigate for murder in court. Well, the second autopsy happened in November of 2011 because, well, it was clear it was required. The attorney for Amanda's family, Stephen Cohen, retained 2 forensic pathologists, and they asked Amanda's body be turned over to them so they could perform another autopsy. And the things they found were certainly chilling. Someone had employed their bare hands to steal the life of Amanda. There were also defensive wounds on Amanda's body, which were consistent with the fact that she attempted to fight off the assailant. Also, the fact that she was found bald and disrobed upside down in a garbage bin just proves somebody did something to Amanda. But if that weren't bad enough, her tongue was missing. I mean, you can really see the difference between the 2 autopsies. The second autopsy, which is truly more credible, indicates that Amanda was killed. Furthermore, Stephen Cohen asked for another independent toxicology test on Amanda's body. And when the results were released, they indicated Amanda's levels weren't high enough to result in an overdose or cause her to die. She did have drugs in her system, but there weren't enough to kill her. What she did have in her system, however, and plenty of it, was a pretty common roofie drug. Also, and this was pretty much what caused some progress in the case, DNA was located on Amanda's body. 4 various samples of DNA were recovered from Amanda's body. 2 unidentified female profiles, and then DNA from Adam Patterson and Antoine Garner. How the female DNA wound up on her body, we really don't know, but it seems fairly obvious how Adam and Antoine's DNA wound up on her. But this still failed to actually answer the primary question: who murdered her? All this resulted in the 3rd and last autopsy being conducted on Amanda at the request of the district attorney and was conducted separately by Dr. Scott LaPointe early in 2012. But in his report, the manner of death of Amanda remained undetermined. In a couple of reports, it mentioned that a 4th autopsy had also been conducted on the body of Amanda, but the findings were the same, undetermined. Nonetheless, it bore no successful outcome as Amanda's death certificate continued to say that she died as a result of an accidental overdose owing to the first mess of an autopsy. And her mother, Lisi, had other plans. She wished to alter their reason for death to homicide. And she even sued Erie County and Erie County's chief medical examiner back in September of 2021, nearly 13 years since her daughter was found discarded in that dumpster. Lisi's wish was straightforward. She either wanted the cause of death changed as murder or remain undetermined, or to have the Erie County Medical Examiner's Office reopen the case to ascertain the cause of her death properly. But none of that came to pass because the court threw out the lawsuit on grounds of being beyond the statute of limitations, which is absolutely nuts. It had been over 10 years since Amanda was found unequivocally murdered. And a handful of autopsies and a lawsuit later, the case was still at a standstill. How do you think Amanda's mom and her loved ones were feeling all these years later? trying to obtain some answers and running into one roadblock after another. It is just heartbreaking, but there is hope. Antoine Garner's DNA was discovered on Amanda's body. And for some time prior to the autopsy being performed, he was a suspicious person in the eyes of police. But when the autopsy and eventually Amanda's death certificate ruled that her cause of death was an accidental overdose, the investigation pretty much died from that point on. And Antoine was no longer a suspect, not even slightly. But how can anyone just dismiss Antoine and the possibility of his involvement so easily? He was obviously a violent man. He dealt with sketchy people and sketchy things, and he was the last person to see Amanda live. And if you recall, Antoine said that he and Amanda never became physically intimate. Well, then why was his DNA on her body? And Amanda's body turned up in a church parking lot, which was just steps from Antoine's house, the last place Amanda was seen. Regardless of how you slice it, there's just something not quite right about Antoine. Though he said that someone was framing him after Amanda's body was found, he can't really say anything for sure. But something happened in 2013, 5 years after Amanda's disappearance. And although it has nothing to do with Amanda, the similarities are uncanny. See, in 2013, Antoine Garner was arrested for several crimes. These included assault and nearly murdering an adult worker whose services he'd paid for. When Garner's crimes were investigated, it was found that he'd committed several felonies between December of 2008 and January of 2009. Does that timeline sound familiar? Because that is the exact time when Amanda was reported missing and later discovered in that trash can. Antoine, being the type of man he is, also had been caught with a minor and was also arrested for armed robbery. But on top of all that, in June of 2011, police discovered that he had rented an adult worker and had choked her with his bare hands. Sound familiar? So you can tell what type of guy Antoine is. I mean, it doesn't take much persuading to envision him as a violent and horrible individual who will do anything just to hurt someone who crosses him, or someone who doesn't cross him for that matter, like the woman that he took hostage while burglarizing her residence. In total, the fact that Antoine's DNA was discovered on Amanda's body, and the fact that he falsified information stating that he hadn't been intimate with her on the night she disappearance, it's suspicious as can be. I just don't personally believe that's possible. But put Amanda's case aside for Amaman, Antoine was sentenced to 18 years in prison for the strangulation, assault, and 2 counts of robbery charges. And he's still in prison today. But he was never charged in Amanda's case. As of today, it's been 16 years since Amanda walked out of her shift at Cocktail Bob's with Adam and headed to Antoine's house. It's been about 16 years since her body, frozen, was discovered in a trash bin near Antoine's house. It's been 16 years since the autopsy reported that Antoine and Adam's DNA was present on Amanda's body, yet nobody has been arrested for her killing. We don't know if Antoine had anything to do with it, even though a great deal of evidence suggests he probably had something to do with it. But even if he did, is it possible that Adam was involved somehow as well? After all, he was her manager. He set up the meeting between Antoine and Amanda in the first place. It's been more than a decade since a mother lost her daughter, and as far as anyone knows, the perpetrator still hasn't been punished. Lisi knows that her daughter was murdered, but her long struggle has led to a lot of letdowns and no progress, but she's still fighting for justice. Justice for her daughter, who is more than an addict or adult worker. In April of 2021, there was new evidence that indicated that Antoine might have used a stun gun or taser to incapacitate Amanda prior to when he ultimately killed her. And defenders of this case allege that they have a witness that can confirm that Antoine did have a stun gun and that he died use it on Amanda. So if these witnesses are found to be credible, it puts a whole new twist on the story. Activist and Erie County Sheriff candidate Miles Carter emphasized that Amanda's case needs to be re-examined, either with new eyes or by placing the clear evidence at the center. Until 2025, there have been no more updates on this case, though. Antoine remains behind bars serving his sentence, and who knows when he'll be released. But they'll probably be out pretty soon. Perhaps the investigators on Amanda's case can locate that smoking gun that takes the killer, whoever he is, to task. Lisi hopes so, but she's also disappointed that she's worked so hard and still can't get justice for her daughter. She has no closure. She doesn't even know how to make peace with this awful thing. It's high time Amanda's case was brought to a close, and a fulfilling one at that. It's the only way to ensure that Amanda didn't lose her life in vain, and the murderer or murderers are still held responsible for their actions. Amanda wasn't just some life to be thrown away. She was a young woman with hopes, dreams, ambitions, just like the rest of us. She'd made bad decisions that led her to bad places, but she was trying her best to extricate herself from this line of work that she'd ended up on and sort things out so that she could become a police officer like she always intended. It's tragic to learn about young women, or anyone for that matter, ending up in such a soul-destroying lifestyle. But we're all one bad day or one bad choice away from our own lives actually being no better. All we can do is the best we can do. And Amanda tragically was doing just that. And it hurts my heart to see her mother left with so much of a mess after her daughter was taken from her so violently. This case must be solved. And Lissy must get closure. Thanks, guys, for listening to another episode of True Crime Stories. I wanted to offer a special thanks to a couple channel members, including Scott Ridenauer and Yosarge. If you'd also like to join the channel as a member, you'll get to see new videos sometimes days or weeks before they're put online to the public. And it's a good way to help support the channel and assist. And thank you to those of you who have chosen to do that. So if you'd like to join, you can click that big join button below the video or look for a link down in the explanation. And don't forget, the new True Crime Stories. It's Never a Mannequin t-shirt is now available at the link below. Every time you buy, it supports the channel and you receive a really neat shirt in exchange. But as always, if you liked this video, check out this other fascinating case I talked about and don't forget to subscribe. It's completely free and just keeps you abreast of all my upcoming videos. But my name is Ty Can, and I'll get you guys in the next one.